I didn't announce the class this morning, but I have so many things I wish to talk about that I have to come on today, because I have a lot of things that I want to talk about. So let me get into that right now. I think we should be in lesson number 5, and I hope that those of you who are already on will share the live so that we could get as much persons as possible to come on and join the class this morning. I'm going to leave the link there so that if you need to come in and join the classroom, you would be able to do that as well. I'm going to leave it in the chat section. I'm going to pin it to the top there as well. So if you wish to come on and join the classroom, you'd be able to come on and join the classroom with us this morning. Um, you know, all hell is breaking loose in the world today. All hell is breaking loose in the world today. Let me start looking for the register. Those of you who are here, you can share the live, and let's get going for another day. It's a beautiful day on the outside. I want to thank the Most High for giving us this day and for allowing us to be here for another day where we can learn different things. You know, I want to really address some of the comments that I have seen in the live, not on the live, but on many of the videos that I have done in relation to Cuba. I see some people saying that Cuba, is a communist socialist country, and really should be basically destroyed, taken over, all sorts of nonsense. Um, you know, I don't know where, if anybody really know anything about Cuba at all. I don't know if anybody have any idea what Cuba has done for countries around the world as it regards to education, in terms of healthcare, and many other things. A lot of people, I don't think they know that these things would have happened. And it's sad because they don't know. They spew a lot of nonsense that they would have learned from the United States of America, the Western media. This is where most of our people in the region get their education from. And because they get the education from the Western media, they talk a lot of, well, I would say sometimes a lot of garbage, because when you really go and research and the information is there, you realize it's just a lot of garbage. A lot of people are really speaking when it comes to Cuba, when it comes to Venezuela, when it comes to most of the countries that America say are quote unquote bad countries and need to be isolated. You know, more destruction has been done in the name of democracy. It has been done in the name of socialism and communism. Any one of you on this live, I believe you're in Caribbean countries, different Caribbean countries. And in the case of most of these islands, you would have heard a lot of things about, oh, Christopher Columbus discovered these islands. But their own history books or their own history in their archives will tell you Christopher Columbus discovered the islands for Spain. He didn't discover the islands. And while we were in primary school and secondary school, teachers told us that Christopher Columbus had discovered these islands. And, you're young, you didn't know better, and you're hearing these things and you say, well, maybe it is true that Christopher Columbus discovered the islands. You don't know. You just don't know. But you've been hearing these things and you say to yourself, maybe Christopher Columbus actually discovered these islands. And they told you that, and they go through Form 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you believe it because your teachers tell you, and sometimes you didn't know better at the moment, and you believe every single word that they said to you about Christopher Columbus discovering these islands. And then one day I decided to go to the library, start digging for different books. And when I dug those books and went through the history of St. Vincent, because remember they don't even teach you the own history of your island in school, you know. They teach you what the Americans and the British write for you. And so I start digging through all of these books, and lo and behold, to find out that this man met people here who we call indigenous people and who we call Garifuna people, and a host of different things. And I went back to the teacher and I said to the teacher, but why are you telling me that Christopher Columbus discovered these islands when in fact Christopher Columbus met people living on these islands? Clearly, he did not discover these islands. And so we are now in today's modern era, we are now moving away from that because we are getting to understand that all these things were a bunch of hippie lies that were taught to us, that Christopher Columbus discovered these islands. Some of them are still in school books till now. I don't know why they have them in school books, but really and truly, they should be removed, utterly removed from school books, because Christopher Columbus never discovered these islands. He may have discovered them for Spain, but not he hadn't discovered these because people were already living on St. Vincent and the Grenadines and many of these other islands. So because of that history, because of what they taught us in schools, we believe everything that the British and the Americans told us, and that is where our history comes from. That is where our talking points originate from. And it is so sad that our talking points have originated from these empires. And if our teachers, our educators really go get the necessary information and say to us, well, this is that, we'll be a better people when we make our points about places like Cuba and places like Venezuela and different places in the region. I see a lot of people talking about Cuba. I think they really don't know anything about Cuba. And I clearly, what they say is a regurgitation of what I hear in the US media. And it scares me that these people will be teaching their children these things, and we'll be having another lost generation about the true identity of our region, about the true history of our region. Have you ever read anywhere that Cuba invaded several countries and just killed the people? Have you ever read that anywhere? Have you ever read that Venezuela invaded any country and just killed people? Have you ever read anywhere that other countries, that Panama? Have you ever heard that Panama invaded another country and killed people? Have you ever heard that Grenada invaded another country and killed people? I am quite sure that you have never heard that sort of nonsense anywhere, in any book or from anybody, that these countries would have invaded and massacred people for their own benefit. No, you've never heard it because it never happened. But you can tell me, I'm quite sure that you can list several countries that the United States of America have invaded over the years and have massacred people for their own benefit. I am quite sure that you can tell me that. So, when we talk about these things, we can't talk about these things in isolation. We really have to have common sense and some form of not displaying too much ignorance when we speak about these kind of things. It's really sad to see Caribbean people really making comments like that on these videos about Cuba and talking about time to get rid of Cuba. Let me tell you something. What I have in my hand here is a small snapshot of what the United States have done since their existence as a nation. A study from the Military Intervention Project at Tufts University documented over 500 international military interventions by the US since 1776, with nearly 60% of these occurring between 1950 and 2017. This is Tufts University doing this project. And they went up to 2017, and I stopped there because I know there's more. Post 1945 intervention since World War II, the US has involved in military operations in over 80 countries. That's since World War II. Since World War II. Formal declarations of war. Congress has formally declared war only 11 times, they said, against 11 nations, including Great Britain, one of their biggest allies, Mexico, Spain, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Japan, Italy, Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Thailand through 1942. Well, we all know what they did in Japan with Hiroshima. They bombed that place so bad that not even a blade of grass can grow back there till this day. In 19th century, Canada, War of 1812. Mexico, 1846 to 1848. These are examples of the US invaded or intervened in countries. And between 1846 and 1844, they intervened and invaded various Latin America and Caribbean nations. Some of you weren't even born in 1848. You know that? Do you some of you know that history? Huh? Some of you weren't even born in 1848. And in the 20th century, America invaded or intervened in the 20th century. America invaded or intervened in these countries: Panama, Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, Dominican Republic. I'm giving you them in the Caribbean too, Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Lebanon, Iraq, Grenada. This is the 20th century now. This is the 20th century. I'm just giving you a little snapshot of the overview because I know there's more, but I'm just telling you, when I hear people talking rubbish about how Cuba is socialism and Cuba must be overtaken and they must be overthrown and thrown, I wonder if people understand the history of the United States of America. Cuba has never invaded any country in the world. Venezuela has never invaded any country in the world. Grenada has never invaded any country in the world. But here you have the United States of America invading in the 20th century Panama, Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Lebanon, Grenada, Iraq. These are countries either invaded or intervened by the United States of America in the 20th century. In the 21st century, you have Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, Libya. You now have Iran, along with the Zionist regime conducting operations over there. Well, all hell is breaking loose in the world right now because of that war in Iran. And I'll go to that in a short while. What a definition of an invasion. Strict definition, 10 to 15 countries. Focuses only on full-scale invasion and formal declarations of war. And they have broad definitions, which is 70 to 90 countries include banana wars, the CIA-backed regime changes, covert operations, significant naval blockades. There are some reports that will tell you, right? There are some reports that will tell you that the US has initiated military intervention in nearly every country in the world at some point in its history. The number of direct and ground level invasions is lower. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This information I'm giving you here now. This information I'm giving you here, you know where it come from? You know where it come from? It's based on reports, research, and Congressional Research Service data as of 2026. It's not me now. It's their data telling you that. Their data telling you that America has initiated military intervention in nearly every living country on this earth at some point in its History. And people telling me that Cuba is a problem, and Venezuela is a problem, Panama, Grenada is a problem, everywhere is a problem, Haiti is a problem. And people blame these countries for the failure after. I am really, really sad to see so many Caribbean people being led astray by US propaganda. When you don't know, you just don't know, but you should go and learn before you make comments. And ignorant comments, before you make ignorant comments, you should really go and take a book, sit down and learn. Go in the libraries and look for the old books, not the new ones. Look for the old history books. Let them tell you about exactly what is going on. Go online, research. Go to the Congress of Library. Their own facts are there. They can't dispute. These are their own facts. They can't dispute their own facts. But people need to go and learn and stop depending on NBC and CNN and MSNBC and all these propaganda broadcasts of either the US or of either the Republican or Democratic Party. And I keep telling you people all the time that the American system is different wings of the same bird. It's one bird, two different wings, but it's different wings of the same bird, whether it's Republican or Democrats. It does not matter. Every country in this world that America is invaded is a country that has stand up for itself against America and decide not to take the American narrative. And because of that, they were invaded. And by the time people get to know this thing, they should really learn some common sense. And sometimes people tell me I must use the word, but ignorance is bliss. Ignorance has to be bliss. And people need to learn their history and know something before they make stupid comments. It is really stupid comments they're making. The only threat, well, I think by now all of you heard what happened yesterday. I think all of you knew what happened yesterday in America, where Kent, I think it's Joe Kent. Somebody could remind me on the live. This guy who was in charge of the national security apparatus, he resigned. One of Trump top men, they resigned yesterday because he said Iran was not a threat to the United States of America. Let me tell you something. Let me make this bold talk to all of you. The only threat to America right now is American leaders. The only threat to America right now is its current crop of leaders. That's the only threat that's facing America right now. Yeah, there are people who don't like America, would like to invade America, but they would think twice because they know that they will come up against a formidable army. And let's be clear about that. Let's be very clear about that. Right? Let's be very, very clear about that. But the only threat that America is really facing right now is the current crop of leaders that America have. That's the only threat America is facing right now. Have you ever seen any wars being fought on American homeland? Every war that America has fought is outside of the United States of America. No war has really been fought on America's homeland. I talk about people coming to invade America now. Putting outside the civil wars and all that stuff. I'm not talking about that. That's an internal thing. I'm talking about foreign countries invading the United States of America. It's really only, America fight all its wars outside. So the only threat right now to America is its current crop of leaders. And that's a fact, whether you like it or not. And we must stop being excuse makers for the United States of America. We have to stop doing that. We have to stop it. Look what they did to Trinidad and Tobago. They used Trinidad and Tobago like a whore. Very sad to say that again, but they used Trinidad and Tobago like a whore. They used Trinidad and Tobago like a whore, a great whore. And what did they do after using Trinidad and Tobago like a whore? They left them with the crime and the problems. Yeah, they took back the radar. They really thought they were going to left $3 million radar operational every day in Trinidad and Tobago to help who? Kamala Prasad business and the government? No, that's your damn problem. The radar was used to do what it has to do in Venezuela, and I told you that since last year. People were cussing, but I'm telling you that had nothing to do with narco-terrorism and anything. If that had to do with narco and gun, drug boats and drug running boats, and you think they would have left it there? They would have left it right there. But it was had nothing to do with that, because all this narco terrorism crap was just the usual ploy that they brought up to invade Venezuela and kidnap President Nicolas Maduro. I told you that since last year. They ain't no nonsense about we call it the narco terrorism and all kind of foolishness. Don't bother these people. I showed you from a CIA, a DA report, right? I showed you from that last year. I went in depth with that in the last channel, that this platform decided to erase without warning or without strike. I showed you from the DEA report and from the CIA report that there was nothing, absolutely nothing in their report to say that Venezuela was a problem when it comes to narco and cocaine. Nothing. But that's the narrative that the peddled. Trinidad bought it hook, line, and sinker. A lot of people in the Caribbean, some of them bought it hook, line, and sinker because all they listen to and view is Western media. And today, what did the Americans do? The Americans walk with the radar. So much for having narco terrorism in the Caribbean, and we fighting it for and helping Trinidad to bring down crime. So much for that. Use Trinidad like a whore. I hope they paid the state very well for being used. I really hope that they paid them very well for being used. It's just a sad that our people really don't take time out to, really learn about their history, because if they do, we will not be in this predicament that we are today. I want to continue with America, because you see, I want to give you some history, because this thing that it's really frustrating to hear all people really taking sides. Let me go in the chat section first and welcome everybody who's already online. Lindine Hector, good morning to you. Candice, good morning to you. Sammy, good morning. Cutbutt is on the live. Good morning to you. Red Nose is on the live. President Jaffa is always in the house. Good morning to you. I think I saw Marie Antoinette, who's on the live as well. Let me see who else is here. Tasei Maccabeus. I hope I got that correct. Who else is on the live so far? Stephen King. Stephen Knight. Sorry about that. Stephen Knight is on the live as well. Cuthbert says, I loved my fishing and usually go out with my brother, but since the strike in SVG waters, we are afraid to go out. The location of the strike is where we normally pass through to go fishing. A lot of fishermen in St. Vincent lost a lot of business since that strike, because the government gave them no real cover in terms of, something to believe in, but they are protected. Absolutely nothing. So weak leaders in this region, weak leaders. President Jaffa said that Trinidad peddled that narco-terrorism propaganda like gospel from Christ. Yeah, they did. Sad, to their own demise. Because we have weed eaters and they always fall for the same playbook and always looking at dollar signs. Weed eaters. I love that one. Yeah. And I think Cuthbert mentioned Democrat or Republican, they both have the same objective. Yeah. Look, if you think America is some paradigm of virtue in terms of support for dictatorship, let me tell you all something. And I believe a lot of you on the live know that. The United States of America would support dictators anywhere in the world once it aids them in what they want. What is China? Somebody explain to me. What is China really? Is China a democracy according to the United States of America? Is China a democracy according to the United States of America? Somebody explain to me. What is happening in China? Somebody explain to me. What is happening in China? Is China a dictatorship? Authoritarian? Is it a democracy? Is it a fascist? What is China? Somebody on the live explain to me. Because China is the United States' biggest trading partner. So if China is communist, dictatorship, socialist, whatever you want to call it, Why is America not invading them, telling them to take it down? They have so much human rights atrocities according to the Human Rights Association in the world. Why is it that the United States is not saying we need regime change in China? Why? People, we just, our people, it's embarrassing. Hmm? It's very, very embarrassing according to the old teacher, to hear our people in the Caribbean speak like that. Very, 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 very embarrassing. Listen to me. When I tell you America would support even dictatorships once it benefits them, don't think I'm lying. Let me tell you something. In Oman right now, Oman that Iran is bombing the hell out of right now, Oman, you think Oman is a democracy? According to their own Congress in the United States of America, Oman is run by, a family. And the United States have been supporting that family since the 1970s till now. Hmm? So I don't know what people are talking about. Let me give you them. In Equatorial Guinea, Obiang, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Tedros Obiang, since 1979, America has had a relationship with that country since 1979 to present. The government ain't changing in Equatorial Guinea, but they still, and them had the best relationship in the world. Tell all you know. Then they only changed their relationship with Yemen in 2012 when the Houthis of them start to give them problems. You understand what I'm saying to you? But they've been in love with Yemen before that, since 1990 till 2012. Then they're in love with Egypt. People call that a dictatorship too. From 1989 till present. People need to learn their history. They need to understand what is happening in the world, but before they open their mouth and talk ignorance and garbage. Turkey, since 1952 to present, they've been in love with Turkey. People say Turkey is a dictatorship too. What the man named Erdogan? Erdogan, I can't even pronounce his name properly. Man, somebody will pronounce his name later. Turkey even reach into NATO. All right. Then Saudi Arabia, since 1945. Since 1945. America has been in love with Saudi Arabia since 1945, run by one family. One family, the House of Saud, or Sayyad, whatever you want to call them. Since 1945. So why they never invaded that and tell them to change and get democracy? Somebody explain that to me. Are you talking about Cuba? You have your own Caribbean people talking about Cuba, about communists and socialists, and must get rid of them. Listen to me. In Qatar, the House of Thani. In Bahrain, the House of Khalifa. You know what a building named Burj Khalifa? Is in Bahrain it there? Somebody could tell me on the live. Them who know about all them things there. I don't know. I just hear about them sometimes. They've been in love with them countries since 1945, and they ain't telling them to change. Why they ain't telling them to change and get to democracy? Why? Why is only one family running these places in America in love with them? Why? Because you could see the corruption that is taking place in the world with the petrodollars over there and the oil money. You could see the corruption. I tell you, America would spend time with any dictator once it's in their interests and they can have their way. People have to understand this. So don't talk about Cuba in that way, our own Caribbean people. There's a bunch of dunce you have talking about Cuba in the region and not understanding what is happening in the world. You remember in Iran, they were in love with Pahlavi until 1979? Yeah. Until the coup d'etat? Okay, all right. In Indonesia, they were in love with Suharto up to 1998 until they had the Indonesia mass killings. In Taiwan, you had the Dong Guang regime right up to 1987. You remember that? I tell you all. Okay, I put it aside there. It's from their Library of Congress. I get them, eh? From their own people, not me. Their own Congress alive. Library of Congress. I'm going through them and taking my time. That the people them who talking crap about Cuba in the region, they could come and tell them, listen to this, so that when they talk foolishness, they will understand this world here before they speak foolish. Let me continue here. They were in love with Argentina up to 1982. This was a communist regime down there, you know, the national reorganization process they used to call it. Well, they're in control of what is named Milei down in Argentina, so that's fine. Uruguay, they were in love with that until 1985, until they overthrew. Remember I said they've been in Latin America overthrowing government, you know, because when they can't have their way, that's what they do, they overthrow people. Remember Chile, when they said they were an Allende, when they said they'll make the economy scream when they couldn't deal with him? Right. Don't get it twisted. You had the Somoza dictatorship till 1977 in Nicaragua. You had the Greek junta in Greece in 1974. Pakistan, they were in love with that Pakistan authority up to 1969. That was an authoritarian regime. Abu Khan was backed by the United States. You know why they had backed that regime? That regime was an authoritarian regime, but you know why the United States had backed that regime in Pakistan up to 1969? Because they were pushing against the influence of the Soviet Union in South Asia. You have people like Henry Kissinger, powerful US diplomat, was wary of the left-wing sympathies of the Indian government and exploited the historic tension between Pakistan and India for American interests. You hear that? For American interests, not your own. So when you hear United States of America coming to tell you, get rid of Cuba for their interests, and the rich ones who they want to place in Cuba for their interests, not the people of Cuba interests, their interests, you must learn to understand before you talk garbage. You hear me? That individual is watch this channel, they know what I'm talking about. They must learn to understand these things before you talk garbage about Cuba. If America was concerned about democracy, do you think the United States of America or the Trump regime would have removed Maduro and allowed Delcy Rodriguez and the rest to stay in office there? No. They can twist up their hand and put an indictment over their head and tell them, send me your gold and your oil, so that their friends can get rich in Qatar and monies can transfer here and there. That is why they allow that regime to stay in place down there. It can't happen with Maduro, so to get rid of he. It could happen with them, the rest of them. You understand where I'm coming from? You all need to understand things. Who benefiting from Venezuela now? Who the one benefiting from Venezuela at this point in time? You think it's the Venezuelan people? No, it's the Americans and the Qataris. Because that's where the money go, and the oil go to the United States of America. Donald Trump tell them there, I want your gold, send it, or put the indictment on your head, and they had to send it. 100 kilograms of gold. You see people talk a lot of garbage, a lot of rubbish. Sometimes I wonder if people go to school, the system they have, well, you have to talk garbage because that's all they educate you on, really. But the information is there, right, in the United States Congress. You can go get it before you talk foolishness about Cuba. Go and get it. And then you have the China. Don't talk about China. That's the biggest one. That's the biggest one. 1980 to 1989. You remember they were in love? You remember they were in love with China at that time? In 1980, this is from the Congress, you know. This is their thing, and it's not me, it's from their playbook. They said in 1980, the US government opened listening posts in Xinjiang to monitor the Soviet Union during the Soviet-Afghanistan War. After the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, the US imposed an arms embargo on China. But they were in love. Yeah? They were in love. They were in love, you know. They were in love with China before that. Can't be in love with China now because can't get the way. Just telling you. Cuba. The US government has been, the US government supported Batista, 1952 coup to become president again and his subsequent government to remain in control of Cuba. You understand what happened there? They were in love with Batista up to 1958 when he controlled Cuba so that they could benefit from Cuba. What happened in 1958? When the Castro come around and say, no, you can't have the Americans doing that here. No. We have to control your own destiny. Okay. I'm just telling you. And then you had the Ayatollah Khomeini up to 1986. The United States, according to the congressional papers, gave arms to Iran in secrecy during the Iran-Contra affair. This was done to contain both sides economically and militarily. Try and see if you could, learn before you come and talk foolishness. I've given you verse and chapter from the American Bible. Verse and chapter from the American Bible. So when you're talking, go and ask them for what they write in their Bible before you talk foolish about Cuba. I'm giving you verse and chapter. Learn common sense before you make foolish statements. With the United States and the Iraq relations. And they supported Iraq. And they supported Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war. You hear me? Until then, after that, all hell break loose over there. You know what happened after that. I tell you all, is the mouthpiece, the mulattoes, who in the mouthpiece in the region for the Americans are talking to right now. Let me go. Absolutely cut butt. You're correct about that. And then you have El Salvador. Military dictatorship. But they're in love with that. Remember the Salvadorian Civil War? Right. Paraguay. Alfredo. You had Guatemala in 1954, the coup. You had South Korea from 2022 to 2024. You had Haiti, Duvalier dynasty, Haiti-United States relations, and the Haitian National Truth and Justice Commission. You had Haiti, and then they know they invaded Haiti. You know about that? You hear me? I'm giving you verse and chapter of the American Bible. Go learn it before you talk foolishness about Cuba. Go learn it. Learn it. Learn. It's from their book, It's their Bible I'm reading from. It's not mine. Their Bible. Library of Congress. Go do your own research. I'm talking to the mulatto who want to be white and speaking like garbage about Cuba in this region here. Have absolutely no idea what he's speaking about and America's nasty behavior in this universe. Invaded almost every country on this universe since its existence. People don't understand these things, You have to know before you talk. You have to know. And then Jordan, House of Hassan. Why is it that these countries don't have democracy like America talk about? Why they don't go and tell them have democracy? You ever ask yourself that question? Zaire, CIA activities in Democratic Republic of Congo. Chad, CIA activities in Chad. They've been in love with them people here until they couldn't go with them anymore. And then you have Spain. Remember what happened with Madrid? And you have India with Moody. Well, that's still going on. And you have Philippines. Listen to me. If you don't know, ask questions. If you don't know, use the same laptop you use to stream with and talk garbage to do some research before you come and speak. Try to educate people about what you have to the north of you. That is a threat to the entire world. Try and educate yourself on these matters before you speak about Cuba. I'm not here defending Cuba. Cuba is not a saint either. You have some leaders in Cuba not a saint either. But America is no angel dancing on the head of a pin. When you come from the Caribbean, learn the Caribbean history, learn the empire that you're dealing with, and why they go about what they go about doing. I spoke about Trinidad so much last year. I spoke about Trinidad with Rowley, and I spoke about Trinidad with Kamla. I said they were both wrong to give America unfettered access. And Rowley signed the agreement, and when Kamala come and up the ante on that agreement. I told the people of Trinidad and Tobago that Trinidad will be used like a whore. I said it last year. I said it will be used like a whore, like a puppet, and then pushed aside by the Americans. So said, so done. They came, they saw, they conquer, and they left you in a ruin. This is what they do all the time. Use you like a whore. They placed a radar. They went. They used the radar to connect to satellites, to get into Venezuela, do what they had to do, jam signals, brought their vessels here, do all of that, went in, kidnapped Maduro, took him to the United States of America, but they can't have a case yet. They're still looking to get something out of Venezuela so they can build a case against him. They used Trinidad like a great whore and then left it to suffer. Crime is still happening in Trinidad. Drugs are still running rampant in Trinidad. There's no more radar to see boats going across here. You know why? You ask yourself, were there boats to begin with in the first place? Yes, there were some boats. Drugs has always been in this region. It's nothing new. But the U.S. Coast Guard has always intercepted and interdicted these things in the region and put them on display in Miami. So you didn't need all of these vessels and all of these things down here creating war in this region. And when I said war, a lot of people took me out of context, You know the war I was talking about, and I told people that, but people weren't listening. I was speaking about the confusion that you're now having in the Caribbean region with the leaders of the region can't make up the mind on simple things, whether to help Cuba or not. That is the war I was talking about. The war I was talking about was when they came here now, blowing up boats. Nobody said anything. And the war I was talking about is putting CARICOM leaders against each other. That is where they are at this very moment. They could always go to St. Kitts, like they did. Try to look like the United, but they were not united. And that is why Kamala went there, cussed people. That is why Drew from St. Kitts said, nobody coming to save us. But yet, in that very said meeting, they bowed and agreed to what Marco Rubio told them about Cuba. And that is why Ali went back to Guyana and said, the status quo has to change in Cuba. And you ask yourself, why do people vote for these people? And you want to ask yourself, why do people vote for these people that we have in this region here? They're not leaders, You know what they're doing right now in this Caribbean here? They're managing decline of this region here. That is what they're doing at this point in time. They're managing decline of the region. Leaders that you have right now, they are town councillors, they're governors, they're not prime ministers and presidents, they're town councillors and governors, mayors, running systems for massa. That's what they're doing. And they're managing decline of this entire region. Well, all hell is breaking news right now. And the United States of America is saying, well, this is what came out this morning from the State Department. It says they're ordering all of their U.S. embassies to immediately review security as a tax spreader. I told you last week that the Iranians said that when things come to a head and they feel that they may be drowned in some pool that they can't get out, they would start to activate their sleeper cells around the world. And wherever there is a US embassy, there will be problems. People said I was lying. They said I was lying. One even went as far as saying that the Iranians just talk to you, they should lock you up. That's what they said under one of the videos. An idiot from Trinidad and Tobago. I am saying it as it is now. I'm calling out people what they are. An idiot from Trinidad and Tobago said that. Mind you, I'm not talking about everybody in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm singling out an idiot from Trinidad and Tobago. I keep telling you all, my roots are from Trinidad and Tobago. My grandfather from Trinidad and Tobago. So I love Trinidad and Tobago. But I'm singling out a single idiot in Trinidad and Tobago who said they should lock me up because the Iranians are talking, because I said that the Iranians said that they would awake the sleeper cells. And in every country that have embassies, they would do that. Well, look at here. State Department said today they're ordering, and I will have to do a separate video on this because I am going through all of that. The US embassies are ordered to immediately review security as attacks spread worldwide. You hear me? Worldwide. The State Department is ordering all US embassies and consular posts worldwide to conduct, that's what they said, not me, to conduct security reviews without delay. Without delay. Is there a US embassy in Trinidad? Is there a US embassy in Barbados? Where is in the region you have US embassies and consulates? Talk to me in the chat section. Talk to me. Light up the chat section. Talk to me. Is there US embassies in the Caribbean? I can't remember how much they have. Talk to me in the chat section if you have any idea. Let me know which countries you remember having these things. The order, which came from the Undersecretary of Management, Joseph Evans, was signed by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, one of the warmongers, told the embassies to undertake the security reviews immediately, citing the ongoing and developing situation in the Middle East and the potential for spillover effects. The cable instructed all posts to report their security practices to Washington as soon as possible and to notify US citizens where appropriate, citing the department's no double standard policy, which says important security information must be made available to US citizens. The order was first reported by the Washington Post. There's an embassy in Barbados, base in Barbados, a US embassy all over the world, just like them army bases. Iran warned that about their bases all over, yet the UN livid when the Iran made them legitimate targets. That's right. Well, President Jaffa is very correct. US embassies are used as spy cells in each country. They are. They actually are, to gather intelligence. That's what they do. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Okay. Well, this morning, the US State Department is urging all of the embassies around the world to beef up your security, review security, because attacks are spreading. So they just realize the mess they placed their own country into by going into an illegal war against another sovereign nation. Someone said, yeah, you did said Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica. I know Antigua had one day possibly still have an office there. Okay. A spokesperson said that the State Department does not comment on internal communication, and it has continually conducted what are known as emergency action committees, which are tasked with preparing for and responding to potential security risks that could affect US citizens. American citizens around the world is in problems based on this war in Iran. It says every embassy in the region must conduct emergency action protocols, including the interagency representative. Spokesperson added that the State Department regularly directs its diplomatic posts to convene these things in timing and frequency. An Iran-aligned military group fired drones, rockets at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad on Tuesday, according to the U.S. official. 6 of the 7 projectiles were intercepted, they said. So there were no embassy. They said there were no serious injuries. That's a lie. We know about the damage and the massive damage. The embassy is basically gone. U.S. embassies in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia have also been targeted by strikes, while an explosion at the U.S. embassy in Norway is under investigation. I don't know if you heard about that one. Norwegian police say it might have been a deliberate attack lying to the current security situation. I'm going to tell you all something. Every country that has a U.S. embassy will come. Got an email last night. Where is it? Got an email last night. A very good source who's always been giving me very good information. Talks about the same situation here. And specifically mention that those who are propagating, how to put this, because this email, I don't want this person, those who are allowing their country to be used to as tools by the US, basically, to destroy their allies overseas. And they specifically talked about the illegal operation in Venezuela in the email that I got. They spoke about the aggression by the United States against Venezuela and all those who were complicit in that aggression. And they also specifically mentioned what is happening in Cuba. So, if you're living in places like Trinidad, Guyana, I think there's an embassy there too, I can't remember. Yes, Guyana, somebody mentioned it. If you're living in those countries, you ought to pay particular attention to certain movements. Remember, the State Department has already said embassies worldwide. But I'm just telling you what came in the email. So if you're living in those countries, they specifically talked about Venezuela aggression, and they also talked about the Cuba aggression. So I just put in your notice. I put in your notice. So it goes on to say that an Iran militia group fired drones and rockets. Well, we talked about that already. It says, on the eve of the U.S. strikes on Iran, the U.S. told embassy staff in Israel to leave quickly if they would like, out of abundance of caution. All right? And they're saying that the previously reported U.S. military officials have regularly provided Trump with off-ramps to the war, options that he has not opted so far. Trump said Friday that he will know when the conflict is over, when he feels it in his bones. That's what he said, when he feels it in his bones. People are crazy. These people have to be from the synagogue of Satan and nothing else. Clearly, they have to be from the synagogue of Satan. It can't be anything else. Anything less than that, something, have to be from the synagogue of Satan. And then, I want to address something that is going to affect all of us in this region. Because I keep saying that we import all of our food, basically 60 to 90%. And I keep saying that we would be affected because we import, the supply chain will have problems. Well, there is information out from various, this one is from Pascago, and they ship a lot of stuff to the region. And I'll have to go, look to see. I'll have to go look to see what is the rest they're putting out. But let me just make the announcement early. The major shipping lines serving the Caribbean have announced a general rate increase, right? Major shipping lines. They have announced a general rate increase, and these cost increases are due to increase in operational costs. Many of them don't want to say it is tied to the war in Iran, but it is tied to the war in Iran. So we are seeing now where major shipping lines serving the Caribbean have announced a general rate increase, and these cost increase are due to the increase in operational costs. We are going to have endless problems in this region here because of shipping costs. Remember, I say to you all the time, we import 60 to 90% of our goods in the region. And it's a shame because we clearly could grow the food that we eat, but we import everything in a can. It is really something that I have been talking about for years. It's something that I feel passionate about, and I'm really, really disturbed that up to now, none of the leaders have really made it their business, really, to deal with that situation. And now we're going to face this cost. We're going to face this rise in cost because of what is happening in the Gulf. It's really, really thing. So PASCAGO will apply the following rates increases effective April. So we are here at the 18th of March. They're going to apply it from April the 16th. Equipment general freight increase. 20-foot dry container, they're now moving to $125 US. 40-foot dry container, 250 US. 40-foot dry container, or 45-foot container, 282 US. And anybody who wants to questions or concerns, they say they can contact the local agents. This is past Kiago. So these are increase coming from April. I think freight increase for the Caribbean region. I'm going to look for that right now. I think I saw one this morning from a number of shipping lines. Right. So let's go. Let's see if we could go with this one. Because listen, the rise in shipping costs that we are having in Europe is a new price shock for the Caribbean. It's a new price shock. Let me go through this one here. A new round of shipping charges driven by conflict-related fuel shocks and wider instability in global trade lanes is sending another warning through the Caribbean. When freight goes up, island prices usually follow that. They're saying that the immediate trigger is the latest turmoil centered in the Middle East. Reuters reported that disruption around the Strait of Hormuz has already forced rerouting. So, global stress is now showing up early and clearly in Caribbean freight notices. King Ocean announced higher bunker surcharges effective April 12 for cargo moving between U.S. ports and the Eastern Caribbean, including Guyana and Suriname. Seaboard Marine likewise announced a bunker increase effective April 12 for cargo between the United States, Canada, and several Caribbean destinations, including St. Martin. Tropical Shipping also announced bunker surcharge increases for a wide range of Caribbean services, citing volatility in global fuel costs and a need to maintain service stability. For customers, those notices basically they're saying are technical, but the effect is simple. Freight is embedded in the landing cost of almost everything sold on a Caribbean island: food, medicine, building supplies, appliances, vehicle part, school supplies, household goods. And you can see here that when the shipping companies raise bunker charges, importers pay more to bring cargo in, and retailers and wholesalers will then face a choice between shrinking margins or raising shelf prices. And all of the time, what do? They raise the shelf prices. So in import-heavy economies, that cost usually passes through the system and comes to the consumers. Caribbean governments, well, these daft people that we have here ruling these town councils, their responses vary. Of course, in Barbados, You had the government said they were moving quickly to soften the blow by capping the freight value used to calculate the import duties on VAT. So taxes are not charged on the inflated shipping costs. And the finance officials there also paired that with broader relief measures aimed at cushioning households from imported cost shocks. You have in Antigua and Barbuda, the response is centered more on fuel. You heard Gaston Brown talking about the government would want to observe part of the rising global fuel prices by reducing the tax take on fuel in order to hold pump prices steady. That's what Gaston Brown was saying. All right. And then also you had right in St. Vincent, the message from the government has been more cautionary. This government here saying that it wants citizens to prepare for possible price increases tied to the Middle East conflict. So that's what they are talking about. In St. Martin, I think they said the policy is becoming harder to avoid, and locals are now concerned it's already rising over how bunker surcharge increases could feed the cost of living. So different things are happening. Different things are happening in different countries. And what I'm going to do, this information I'm giving to you with this rate charge, I'm going to remove it from this video and place it in a separate video, maybe 5 or 6 seconds, 6 minutes long, where you can actually watch it and get it back and share it, because you'll have to go through the entire video if you want to get this information. So I'll use this and cut out portions of it. Okay. Let me go back to someone says my biggest concern is high price of fuel, as my business use more than 100 gallons of petrol daily, paying 1650 EC for the last couple of years. It's likely to go up without any ceiling. I understand in places like St. Vincent may reach $20 by next week. Agribusiness killed farming in the entire Caribbean. I witnessed farmers in St. Elizabeth suffer in the early 90s trying to continue shipping their produce to the US. Yeah, you go again. The shipping hike will add to the already tariff imposed by Trump. That's right. The rates announced earlier have increased today. That's correct. Someone says just saw something from Tucker Carlson, and he does not speculate. His info comes from reliable source regarding Israel. And then you have someone saying that you're correct about the shipping, because I'm planning on moving to the Caribbean and my container was 7,500. It's now 8,500. And I guess that's US dollars you're talking about. We are likely going to have a serious famine in the region for about 7 years. We had better start now. Those who don't have land, use flower pots wherever made around your homes. The Caribbean need their own shift, military factories, etc. Dust off Marcus Garvey blueprint and implement it worldwide. Listen, I spoke to a lot of people about this whole issue of getting prepared and planting your own food for a very, very long time. Some people scoffed, they laughed, said I was talking garbage. Well, here we are. The chickens have come home to roost on this day, on the 18th of March. That's what it is. That's what it is. So, guys, that's where we are today in the classroom. I want to thank you for joining. I'm going to leave now. Like I said to you guys, sometimes I could spend a long time with you. Sometimes I spend a short time because I have other businesses I have to tend to. I operate on a business, and I have to take care of them as well. So take care. Take it easy. We will talk again. You can share this live. Like I said, I will take out the last portion of this video. We talked about the shipping costs, the shipping freight, the freight increase, and place it in a separate video so that you can watch it or share it, because you'll have to go through this entire live to get to that part. All right. So take it easy. Take care. And thanks to everybody who was on the live today. I really appreciate you joining the classroom. All right. Take it easy. Take care.